Welcome to the podcast. It's the magical holidays. Time for Joe watching 60 Christmas movies in 60 days. Why, you might ask? Because it sounds like a crazy task to be watching 60 Christmas movies in 60 days. It'll be struggle, no I won't lie. By the halfway point I will lose my mind, but with your support I'm gonna be fine. So let's have a blast on this Christmas time. Join me now and let's find out about today's Christmas movie. Was it good or bad? Happy or sad? Is there another dead mom and dad? Let's get to it with no delay. It's your old pal Joe and he's happy to say welcome to Joe watches 60 Christmas movies in 60 days.
How's it going, everybody? It's me, your old pal Joe. Remember, we used to talk about Christmas movies? I used to watch a bunch of them and then come on here and complain about them and slowly and surely lose my mind about them. Well, I'm back. Am I doing the same project again? I don't know. Let's talk about it. Because I really want to talk about today's movie, A Very British Christmas. First, I'm sorry about last year. I've not been doing well for over a year. Mental health, physical health, nothing doing well. Family health, financial health, all in the dumps. I don't currently have a form of income, aka a job, and it's not been great. I've been struggling, and it hasn't really helped my mental health, but I'm still here, and I want to work on this, because working on this brings me a lot of joy, despite the fact that I one time watched a movie starring one of the Baldwin brothers that looked as if I could make a better movie, and I know I can't make a good movie. That thing was terrible. One day I'm going to go back, and I'm going to watch that again, and I'm going to stun myself all over again with how that movie ever came to be. Look in the archives. I think that was season 2. So anyway, I have not been doing well. So one of the challenges of not doing well and not having a job is not having money. And money is one of the key components of running a daily podcast where the episodes are about an hour long. Yes, I know most of them are over an hour long, but you get the point. It costs a lot of money to host those. And I've run a Patreon in the past to kind of help cover those costs where I did a bonus work. People were very generous. I made enough money to cover cover the costs. And it worked out. But I don't know that I can do that this year. And so I'm not sure whether I can do a new season the way I want to do it. So that's where we're at. The plan is, if things work out and I can figure out a way to make this work, if I somehow get a job, if I somehow get money that doesn't need to go to paying bills, then I will do this. It doesn't seem very bright now, but folks, what else are we going to hold on to? We got to hold on to something. We got to hold on to the things that make us happy, that bring us joy. And this does bring me joy. Talking to you brings me joy. Sitting on the podcast patio brings me joy. Using for the first time since I installed it, a studio microphone arm that is attached to the wall of my studio, where I can then collapse the arm. If you've already seen like a radio studio where they have those arms, or any Twitch streamer or YouTube streamer or content creator, they all have these cool arms that kind of collapse against the wall or stretch across the space. That's what I have. I installed that with some help from my dad into the wall. It's dope. This is the first time I've used it. It's been here for months. It makes me very happy to use this thing. I'm not having to hold the microphone. And I'm also not having to use a microphone stand that does not like to stand up without proper weight on one of the 3 legs. This is great. So these are the things that make me happy. And I need more of that. And maybe you do too. And if you've listened to the past episodes, maybe you'll enjoy some of these. So you may have noticed, if you looked at the title, this is not episode 1. This is episode 00A. The plan is I'm going to do 2 episodes about a week apart talking about Christmas movies. I already have them planned out. And then if everything comes together, I'll try again. Now, if I fail for some reason, if I can't do a movie every day, if I fall too far behind, the only promise I can make is that I'm not going to disappear like last year when I tried to do 25 and 25 and it didn't work. I'm not going to disappear. We'll still do some movies, and that's about it. That's all I can promise. I want to do the big one, but if we can't, we can still have some fun. And I guess with that, that's time to talk about a movie. Today's movie is A Very British Christmas. We get 5 production cards before the movie starts. They are very different, which is one of the things that I love about when a movie has a whole bunch of production cards AstroTurf Productions, AC/DC, films, blah, 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 is that they're never coherent. They don't match together. They're just whatever each individual company thinks looks cool, that's what we get to see. We get some very somber music as we watch gloved hands write in a journal. This is our main character. Her name is Jessica Bailey. She's sitting on a bench in a train station. She explains through her thoughts, through her journal, that she was on a flight to Vienna, but it's been diverted, and now she finds herself stuck in northern England. She explains that there are no hotels or no restaurants, and no way to kill a few hours near the airport, which apparently that's where she is. Instead, she's taking a train to the nearest civilization, as she puts it, for coffee. Her journaling is interrupted by a station worker. It's the kind of guy that might come out and say, train's coming on track 3, and he has this little suit and stuff. I'm sure there's a proper name for what that guy is. I don't know it. Here, for now, we're going to call him a station worker. He assures Jessica that the train will be there soon. He notices then that she's American. She asks if there's a town closer to the one she's currently headed to. How did she find... This is bewildering. There's a lot about this train travel that I get stuck up on. Like when we're talking about these movies, and there's some element that I just can't get past in my head. The train travel in this movie is bewildering. So at the beginning of this movie, she wants to find civilization because apparently they have an airport, but there's no place to get coffee in or around that airport. There's no restaurants and there's no hotels. If there's one thing I know about airports, they tend to be near places for people to stay, because that's one of the things that those people need when they're coming to town is a place to stay. Regardless, she says there's not. We have to believe her. We have no evidence otherwise. So she's saying, I'm trying to find some civilization. And who did she talk to get a ticket to whatever town she was currently headed to? Who did she talk to? We never will find out. But let's just pin that question. Who did she talk to? Because someone said, go to town A. So she's sitting at the train station. She's going to town A. Station worker comes up and says, don't worry, train's going to be here in such and such minutes. And then she goes, you know what? Is there a place closer than town A? And he goes, in fact, there is. There's a place called Farmore. I think it's Farmmore. We'll never see it on screen. That's my best guess. And he goes, in fact, there's a place called Farmore. They have some B&Bs. They have some blah, blah, blahs. That'll be a good place for you to go to. I'll get you a pamphlet for that town. So he heads off to the little office to get the pamphlet. But as soon as he hits the office door, which is near the train tracks, the train shows up. We hear, you know how trains sound. I don't have to do that part. And so the train starts to pull in, but we don't see the train. We just sort of see her, taking it in from her perspective. Like, oh, we see her face. Oh, man, train's here. So she turns back and the guy just screams out because he doesn't have time to get her the pamphlet. I guess from the moment the train starts to stop in the station to the moment it leaves, he does not have time enough to finish getting that pamphlet about 50 feet away. So he tells her, said, hey, don't forget, this place you want is Farmore. It's 2 stops away. Oh, also, when she sees the train, she goes, where does this go? Wizard school? And the thing is, I know about Harry Potter lore. I've never seen it in movies. I've never read the books. I genuinely do not care about Harry Potter lore. I know enough to know that there's a train station element to it. There's like a half station or something, a half stop, whatever. I don't need to know that. Leave me alone. But that's not all trains are. Maybe I could see it maybe in England. She's like, oh my God, is this going to wizarding school? But you were taking a train. What is it about this train that makes it so different looking? Well, they can't show us. I'm guessing because it's not in the budget to have a train actually roll into a station where she's at. She climbs on. The station worker says, yeah, don't forget it's Farmore and 2 stops. We then get a montage of her sitting in her seat in the train. They have a set that looks just like the cabin or whatever you want to say of the train that you'd be sitting in. So again, it's confusing that we didn't see the train before. If they can do this, regardless, I've said regardless too many times. She's sitting in her little seat. She's looking out on the fields and the vistas as she passes by. She's taking photographs. She's having a grand old time. We also get some more voiceover because she's journaling again. She says, what is it they say? When life gives you lemons, make lemonade. She says that as a question, like, isn't that what they say? As if she's not really sure. I'm sure that's just, I'm being too nitpicky. She then concludes by saying, just boarded a steam train to a town I've never heard of. It's quite exciting. We then get more shots of her watching fields. We then cut to her being awoken by a voice from the train conductor saying over the speaker, last stop. And she wakes up with a start and she goes, oh no, where am I? She then rushes off the train. And we then see her walking around this mysterious new town that the rest of the movie is going to take place in. And she doesn't know where she's at. Was there nobody at the train station that could tell her? There was at least somebody, a conductor, telling her that it was the last stop. or everybody. Who knows how many people were on this train? They were telling whoever's on this train, last stop, get off. There's somebody you can talk to. There has to be, in fact, there are signs on the wall of the train station that tell you the city or the town, because when she comes off, she just leaves the fucking station. And I could see the sign in the back, but I thought, nah, I'll get the name later. And in fact, I did, but so could she have. She could have looked and said, oh, I'm in this town. By the way, spoiler, she's in a town called Narrowsboro. It's not fun to say. It is Narrowsboro. So that's where she's at. So she's wandering the streets of this strange town. All the while, she's gathering her coat up near her collar because it's cold out, I guess. Well, it is December. It's a Christmas movie. And she's gathering up her coat, and it keeps like, oh, I'm so cold. And I'm like, just button your... Sorry, guys. I'm getting a little hot already. Button your fucking coat, Jessica. It has buttons, or at least clasps. It has some type of mechanism that people smarter than you and I have created to keep the coat closed. Use it. You don't have to hold it tight. The coat is designed to do that for you. Much like my microphone arm is designed to keep my microphone up in the air without me having to touch it. Clasp the coat, Jessica. Trumpeting music plays as she navigates the streets of this mystery town. She walks into a cafe and is greeted by a worker telling her that they're just about to close. Jessica calls out the worker as having an American accent. I'll be honest, I spent too much time in my notes discussing whether this accent really sounds American or whether it sounds like someone pretending to be American. If you wish to find out for yourself, A Very British Christmas can be found on Tubi or probably some other streaming site. And you can find out whether you think Amber is this woman's name, whether she is truly American or not. So once Amber realizes that Jessica is also American, she basically says, don't worry about it, have a seat, I'll bring you some stuff. They start catching up, they start finding out about each other. Jessica explains her situation and says, I had this flight, it got diverted, then I came on a train, and before she can finish, Amber, the woman's name, interrupts her and says, you fell asleep. And Jessica's blown away. Wait, did this happen to you? And Amber says, yeah, it's like a sedative. And so what we're finding out is that both of these Americans were on a train. Where they were going, who knows? And they both fell asleep. Now, Amber does not say that she was going somewhere else and ended up in this town. But it is weird. Like, are they being gassed? Is there danger involved here? What's happening to these poor people in the mystery town of Farmore or Narrowsboro or other parts of northern England? So then Amber starts telling Jessica about the town that they're in. This is Narrowsboro. We're about 20 miles from the airport. And I started getting curious about something. How long is it take to travel via train 20 miles? And this, as Google replied, almost in a smart-assed way, it depends on how fast you're going. Which, fair play, Google. That's true. So what I want to know is, how fast was this train going? So the one estimate I did find, if it's going about, I think it was 20 miles per hour? No, what was it? 35 miles per hour. If it's going about 35 miles per hour, it would take just under 3 hours to go those 20 miles. So just keep that in mind. We saw her get on the train, journal, take photos, fall asleep, wake up in a new town. Amber also describes Narrowsboro like something out of a Dickens novel. She talks about how everyone drinks tea or some sort of espresso drink. Luckily, Amber, though, she's an American. She keeps a stash of filter coffee on standby, and she's happy to share it with Jessica. Jessica is more than happy to enjoy that coffee with her. We then cut to Jessica finishing up eating some pie. I don't know if it's a savory pie or a sweet pie, but there's some pie that she's had. And she says, man, this was delicious. And Amber explains that this bakery, this cafe, belongs to her uncle. And he makes all the tasty treats that are there. Jessica asks her about any possible hotels nearby. Turns out, no. The main one that's in the area closed already for the winter season, but there might be some pubs with rooms available. She heads off to talk to her uncle since he knows everything about everyone in town. We cut to a man in a flannel shirt and a vest, chopping some wood. This is Andrew, our eventual love interest. A little girl with a delightful British accent walks up to tell her dad that dinner is ready. This is Katie, his daughter. She's about 5 years old or so. I'm bad with kids' ages. Let's just say she's 5. And if I'm wrong, what are we going to do about it? Nothing. Anyway, she says dinner's ready, and that if he doesn't hurry, Grandma's going to give it to the birds. So he stops chopping wood. He and Katie go back inside, where Grandma, his mom, is preparing dinner. Grandma tells them to clean up before they eat. And so then we get this is sort of weird to me, a weird montage of them cleaning in the sink, washing their hands. He's putting foamy soap on her face. It just seemed it seemed odd, guys. It just seemed odd. It seemed unnecessary. And my best guess, and this isn't true, but my best guess is that the movie's worried that we will think that he hates his daughter. So they have to throw in a montage to say, like, no. He doesn't hate his daughter. Look how much fun they're having. Now, I don't really think that's what the movie's doing, but I choose to believe that. The editor gets to this point and is like, no, man, I think this dude hates his 5-year-old daughter. We got to add some music and slow motion to this scene where they're washing their hands for dinner. While they're eating dinner later on, Grandma asks what they like for Christmas dinner. Katie, the little girl, she then runs off a long list of things that she wants, not just for Christmas dinner, but for the whole day of Christmas, starting with, I believe it was mincemeat pie. For breakfast, Grandma says, well, I don't know about all of that. That's a lot of stuff. And when I was taking the notes, I thought, we're going to come back to that. She's actually going to get that for her granddaughter. She's going to be able to give that to her granddaughter so that she can have the proper breakfast that she's listed. So Grandma says she's not going to make it all. But at that moment, I thought, no, that's the way this movie's going to work. Is she's saying you're not going to get all these treats that you want for Christmas. But then when Christmas day comes, she's going to actually give it all to her. She's going to make all these things. No, it never comes up again. I was wrong. Grandma also notes that and she puts a lot of emphasis on they've called again, and they want to get the contract finished by the end of the year. It would be a nice treat for us, she says to her son, Andrew, that it would be nice to have security for Christmas. Andrew scoffs at the people on the phone being worried about the family's security or their happiness or anything. And what do? Do they triple the offer? Katie, the little girl, she picks up on some tension here in this discussion, and Andrew's like, no, don't worry about it, sweetie. Everything's going to be fine. Just then, Amber calls their residence and is looking for a space, and that's when you find out that Andrew and his mom and young Katie, they don't just live like on a farm. They actually live in a place where they have a whole bunch of lodgings, a lot of little cabins that people can stay in. And so when he gets the phone call from Amber at the bakery, he's delighted. He's like, oh, absolutely. We can make up a space for her. I'll get it going. You just let me know. Is it just for one night? And Amber goes, yes, for now. As if she suspects that this woman is not leaving. What does she know that we don't know? What does she know that Jessica doesn't know? We see Andrew hurriedly preparing the room just as a cab pulls up. It's of course, Jessica. He runs out to get her bags, and he introduces himself. And he's like, he's a handsome boy, and she's a pretty lady, and so we know what's going to happen. So he introduces himself and says, I'll take your bags inside. And she watches him walk away. And it was just something funny about this because it feels like she's like, oh my God, he is so strong and powerful. And he does not walk this way. But to me, it was as if he was kind of waddling because he had legs too big, arms too big. I can't really walk normal. But that's not what happened in the movie. But anyway, she's like, oh my God. And the thing is, the catch of this is her bags were relatively small, unless they were very heavy. I don't know. There really wasn't much to be impressed by. So they go in the room. She says she loves it. She particularly points out a painting on the wall that I already used the word particular. She particularly loves that painting. And he goes, oh, really? And I'm thinking, it's going to be painted by his dead wife. Nope, that's not the case. He painted it. Andrew painted it. Jessica's surprised, and he goes, oh, I know. How a big old lum like me could paint something so sensitive, right? And he does, I believe he says the word lum. L-U-M. Maybe it was lump? Maybe bum, but it wasn't. It was an L. It was an L sound. What the hell is a lum? Anyway, he basically accuses her of enforcing toxic masculinity expectations without saying it that part. And I thought, it's kind of a dick move. Like, she's just surprised. And look. In real life, this movie's just having her give her a hard time. Give her the business, as I like to say. He's just messing with her. But it is funny to take it very seriously. Because if I was to stay at a lodge and the guy walked me to the room and I'm like, man, this room is nice. I love the decorations. I love the furniture. I love the way everything looks. Oh, wow. Even that painting is awesome. And you say, like, who painted it? Which is kind of odd. It's weird. I can see enjoying a painting, but immediately going, who painted it? As if it's going to change some aspect of your life. But it doesn't matter. Moving on. Who painted it? And he goes, I painted it. I'm allowed to be surprised at that. Because why would I think he painted it? I go to my doctor's office, and he has cool paintings that I don't know who painted them. He has cool paintings in all the different rooms. And if I asked him, who painted them? And he said he did, I'm allowed to be surprised without being accused of being like, you're too dumb and muscular. How did you paint that? Regardless, she apologizes and blames it on her being jet lagged. They laugh. He asks if she'd like breakfast the next morning, and she says that sounds great. He leaves, and as he walks away, she makes big old romantic eyes at him. Inside the kitchen, we find Grandma has already identified Jessica. She's on her little iPad or whatever, her tablet. And she goes, Jessica's a singer, a big-time soprano who's won over 20 awards. Andrew seems intrigued, but he plays it off like he doesn't really give a shit. He notes that he's offered Jessica breakfast. Grandma says, we don't offer breakfast. And he shyly looks down and says, well, she's in a bind. Where else can she get food? Grandma just stares at him. That's not good enough. She doesn't say it, but that's what her stare says. He then admits that, well, she liked one of his paintings, and he liked the compliment. It's not a crime, is it? And Grandma holds his hand. She puts her hand on his hand, and she clasps it, and she says, it's most definitely not. And there was something about the way they hit this scene that got me right in the feels. I felt my eyes welling up. This was a great little moment in this movie. Rest of the movie, minus some bits here and there, it's just fine. You know what it is going in. But this scene was really some really effective work here by all parties involved. We cut to Jessica in her room. She's journaling again. She's talking about in her journal about the town and how much she likes it, and she wishes that she had more time to explore it because, as she puts it, it's a town that deserves a few days to explore. We cut to the morning when Jessica's upset with someone on the phone. She's talking to the airline, and she's upset that they are not able to accommodate her in getting her new flight to Vienna because she has a show there. That's why she's going. We find out she's a singer, and we find out she's going to Vienna for a concert. But the woman is not able to accommodate her. There is no flight, I guess, to Vienna on the books as of yet. There's a knock at the door. It's Grandma bringing her breakfast in, and she runs down everything she's brought for Jessica, and let's run down this list. You know I love a good list. Bacon, eggs, sausage, mushrooms, tomatoes, preserves, black pudding, orange juice, and coffee. She adds that she's also baked some bread. Jessica is understandably blown away by the abundance of food. She does ask, what's black pudding? Grandma pauses and says, you know what, if you like it, I'll give you the recipe. FYI, now I know what black pudding is, in general. In case you don't know what black pudding is. It is, and this is from Wikipedia, black pudding is made from pork or occasionally beef blood, with pork fat or beef suet, and a cereal, usually oatmeal, oat groats, never heard of groats before, or barley groats. The high proportion of cereal, along with the use of certain herbs, such as pennyroyal, serves to distinguish black pudding from blood sausages eaten in other parts of the world. Okay, I've had black pudding once. It was not for me. Maybe it's for you. Maybe it's for you. Jessica offers Grandma some of her food, but Grandma says, no, I don't want to impose. Instead, she starts talking about how Jessica liked the painting. We find out that Andrew used to be a full-on artist. He did all kinds of stuff like ceramics and other things like that until he lost his muse. She does not explain what that means. For being a guy with a dead wife, and this sounds very, very attacking, it just seems funny to me that that's just not covered much in this movie. There's not a lot of discussion about a wife. We see evidence that she existed. The main one is, of course, the daughter. But also, at one point, we see a photo on his nightstand. But that's it. There is one effect that is covered later on where he doesn't go down into town much. But it just seems like they really downplayed the dead wife aspect, which is neither good nor bad. It's just unexpected. Just then, Jessica notices Andrew and little Katie outside playing. Jessica thinks that she is just the cutest. I don't think she'd seen her yet. We then get a weird slow-motion montage of Andrew playing with Katie. It's similar to them playing while they were cleaning up in the sink. And again, it's like this movie, it wants us to make sure, I don't think this is true. The movie wants us to know for sure, 100%, that he doesn't hate his daughter. This montage is cut short, even though it felt like it went longer than needed, by a guy named Ben walking up to say hi. He's an older guy with scruffy curly white beard and hair that matches the beard color. Andrew says, I should have known you were coming as I felt the sun go down. Ben says, look, there's no need to be like that. I'm just being friendly. Andrew sends Katie inside and turns to Ben and says, you weren't being so friendly when I wanted to build that play park, and you weren't being so friendly when I wanted to build a shop for my guests to buy things in. You always impede my every effort to improve the business. And Ben kind of ignores that and says, look, you better sell while the getting's good. I know you have an offer on the table, and if you don't sell while you can, Oh, sorry, if you don't sell while I still can, well, he doesn't explain what'll happen. So just to kind of break down what's happening so far in this little angle. There's people that want to buy the property on which Andrew and Ben live. But Ben can't sell his property unless Andrew sells his, and Andrew's not interested in selling his property, so Ben is mad at Andrew and pressuring him to sell. That's the crux of their relationship. Andrew talks about how he's worked hard to make what this place is, make it real, and Ben says, well, you can't make it work without your wife, and it's a very harsh thing to say, but he says it nonetheless. And then Andrew tells him to leave, and Ben says some real cold shit. You should at least try to enjoy Christmas with the family you have left. And I don't know how this didn't result in a punch-out. Grandma comes out to shoo Ben away, but Ben implies that Andrew isn't telling her everything. This comes up a few times during the movie where it's implied that she's in the dark about some aspect of the business goings on. And it's not. That's not true. It's just I think the movie just wanted to be mysterious. Ben leaves and Andrew says, I'm not going to give up to his mom. And Grandma says, I don't want you to. Don't give in to the bully. Music plays as we cut to Jessica taking photos around town. She tries to take a selfie when a young lady walks up and offers to take the photo for her. I don't know why this happened. This girl never appears again. I thought it would be a new friend in town, kind of like the way, spoiler, that Amber from the bakery, the cafe lady, is going to end up being a pal. I thought that's what this because why would you have a whole new actor in a scene in a movie that is sparsely populated with actors? Well, a lot of these lower budget movies, they don't have a ton of actors in them. And it just seems funny that, we'll have her offer to take the photo of Jessica. And then that's it. She never appears again. We get shot after shot of Jessica looking longingly at sights. We cut to the cafe where Jessica's talking to Amber, and she says she saw the argument between Ben and Andrew. And she asks Amber, what's the deal? Amber says, well, you remember when I said that this town was out of a Dickens novel? Well, he's like Fagin, and he's like Scrooge. And Jessica replies and says, bah humbug. In walks Amber's uncle, Adam. So Adam is the baker that runs this cafe. He owns it. He makes all the treats and blah, blah, blah. Why did this movie feel a need to include 3 characters whose names begin with A? We have Amber, we have Andrew, and now we have Adam. It's a lot of A's, and I am bound to screw that up. Jessica tells Adam how much she enjoyed the pie from the day before. He appreciates the compliment and gives credit to the quality from his secret ingredient of orange rind. He recognizes Jessica but isn't sure from what. Amber notes that she's a singer and immediately he nails it. He says, Madison Square Garden, Chicago Symphony Orchestra, movie magic, you were the soprano. And that seems odd. Jessica's impressed. I would be too. Wait, you know who I am? Yes, I am a soprano. Plus, it was 5 years ago, she says. And he goes, oh, I remember it well. I was so impressed with you. The best soprano I've ever heard. I went on so much about you that I was worried that the wife would put me on the couch. Amber then turns the subject to Andrew, and Adam calls him a legend. We find out that Jessica will be staying another night because she can't find out about getting a new flight yet. Adam is excited to find out that the flight she's waiting to get is to take her to a concert. He wishes he could go to the show, and Jessica says she does too. She talks about how she really needs to get to Vienna for the show, and then she says, I have to turn around and head back to Chicago for Christmas. This is a weird bit right here. So she says, I have to get back to Chicago for Christmas. The movie decides to delve further. So Amber says, oh, do you have family there? Jessica says, awkwardly, no. But adds that being a singer, the road is my home, and, well, children need their mom around too. I was confused. Amber gets more explicit and asks, wait, do you have a husband or a boyfriend? Jessica says husbands and boyfriends kind of need their partner around too. And so it took me genuinely 2 to 3 viewings to understand what happened in this scene. And the best I can do is say that her answer to Amber was, no, I don't have family in Chicago because I'm on the road too much and I can't have children, as if that's the only form of family there is. And I don't have a partner because I'm on the road too much. So it's like the only concept of a family she has is having children. Anyway, Amber says that we should hang out around here for Christmas. Jessica says, I have an agent who has lots of plans for me around the holidays. I don't know that I have the option of staying in town. Amber says, you know what? That's fine. Why don't we at least have a good time while we still can? Jessica agrees. Just then, Adam walks in, and on this platter, he has one giant savory pie and a cake, and he notes that the cake is specifically for Katie. We then cut to dinner at Andrew's home, where it's Andrew, his mom, a.k.a. Grandma, little Katie, and Jessica joining them. She thanks them for having her for dinner, and they thank her for bringing back the gargantuan baked goods. Katie says, and by the way, this is a little 5-year-old, she says, I don't mind sharing the cake. Katie then says that Grandma told her Jessica's a singer. Jessica is surprised that they've already heard from Adam, but we know that Grandma looked her up on her own as soon as she arrived on the property. Grandma awkwardly nods along, and I don't know why this had to happen in this movie. Like, this almost feels like the movie was trying to circumvent someone like me going, isn't she curious about how they know who she is? Anyway, Katie notes, the little girl notes that she can sing too and starts a few Christmas carols. She can't sing. She's fine. She's just a little kid, but she can't sing. No wonder her dad doesn't really like hanging out with her. We find out that Katie's in the nativity in school. Jessica says, that sounds great, and she offers her a few tips on posture in order to sound better. Katie then tries those tips and thinks that she sounds a lot better, and she thanks her. So, congratulations. Katie asks Jessica about where she's from. Is it cold at Christmas? Do they get snow there? And the reason that she's asking these questions is because it never snows in Narrowsboro at Christmas time. And this is mentioned so much over the course of this film. You would think that this movie is a secret story about global warming. It's not. It's just because eventually there's going to be snow, and they really want you to know how important that is, how special it is. Once she finds out that where Jessica's from, there is snow at Christmas, Katie says maybe you can make it snow here, and Andrew says Jessica may be special, but she can't control the weather. And I thought this would be the movie like going to poke fun at him saying she's special, and everybody's going to go, ooh, you think she's special. That's not what happens. No one points out that he called her special. Jessica says that she would make it snow if she could, even if I wouldn't be here to share it, which is a weird, awkward inclusion. Katie asks, why won't you be here? Andrew says, well, it's because she's busy and she has her own family to be with at Christmas. Katie, who is in charge apparently, tells Jessica, look, I need you to help us put up the Christmas tree. Andrew again steps in and says, look, she's our guest. I'm sure she has no interest in helping you put up the tree. And Jessica makes a sad face, as if she was excited about helping the family out and helping this handsome boy out with his kid. Grandma's the one that notices it and tells Jessica, you'd be foolish to help this girl put up a Christmas tree. She's crazy, the way you might be playful with a kid. And Jessica interrupts and goes, no, I'd love to, if it's okay with Andrew. So somehow this reverse psychology worked on Jessica. And Andrew says, you know what? That does sound fun. I'll get her tree tomorrow. So there's not even a Christmas tree there to decorate yet. And just at that moment, Jessica gets a phone call. She takes it in the other room. She finds out there's a flight available for the next day. Sorry, it's that night, which is very short notice for a flight to another country. Jessica thinks and she says, I can't go tonight. I'm simply too far from the airport, which I think is true. The woman says, well, the next flight probably won't be for a week. Jessica says, that's okay, and to ring me up when they have one available. She hangs up and says to herself, what are you doing? We cut to Grandma and Jessica walking and chatting. It's the next day. Grandma talks about how nice the lodgings here are, but how they can't compete with places that have big screen TVs or hot tubs, things of that nature. Jessica talks about how she doesn't know why anybody would want to get away from it all by going to a place like that. She says that this is the sort of place people from Chicago would go to get away from things like big screen TVs and hot tubs. I don't know. Grandma says, you must really be a country girl at heart. Jessica thinks about this, takes it very seriously, and goes, you know what? I might be. Grandma then talks about finding what your heart really wants. Andrew used to tour all over the world for exhibitions and such. That's how he afforded to make this place a reality. But he always wanted to come back home. Just then, Andrew drives up at the tree on the roof. He says hi. The trio makes small jokes. He says something like, are you guys going where I'm going? I don't know how far away they are from the main house. So he makes these jokes, and then he goes, I got us a beauty, look. And then both of them look above where he's sitting inside the car and sees the tree on top. And Jessica goes, oh, wow, it's going to look so good. And this implies a sense where Jessica did not notice the tree that was on top of the car, or she's playing along in a very weird way to be like, oh my gosh, I didn't notice that tree's there. It's now nighttime. We see a land excavator. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. It's a digger, but not the ones with the big wide shovels. It's one of the ones with the narrower shovels. We see that in a field somewhere. Well, it's the field belonging to Ben. Ben has the excavator, and he's set about to do some work. What kind of work? It's never explicitly said in the movie what he's doing with this digger. He does have two cohorts that are treated like dum-dums, and I'm not saying that to be judgmental Joe. I'm saying the movie treats them like they have bumbling music playing behind them when they're talking or doing things. They only appear a couple times in the movie, though. So why does he have this big shovel, this big digger? Again, the movie never makes it explicit, but this is what we hear. Ben tells one of the two guys, basically, I'm planting a flag in the ground, and I want you to dig a 10-foot hole around it. It'll be good practice. The guy he's talking to is confused. Ben moans on about how it's going to make it easier to do this job. We need practice to dig up the new drains. I don't know why. The guy still seems skittish. He says he hasn't used one of these machines before. Ben climbs in the machine, starts the digger up, and says, "It can't be that hard, see?" All right, so then we're going to cut back to the house. Katie is looking out of the living room window in hopes of seeing snow. She's a little girl. She doesn't know that, you can just ask somebody, what's the weather look like? Hot chocolate is served to the four of them. They start decorating the tree. And Jessica helps Katie wrap tinsel around the tree, and they make music, and the music that they're playing in the background makes it seem like this is special. Katie asks if she did a good job with the tinsel. Jessica says, "It's perfect, sweetheart." Katie? Katie says, "Thanks, sweetheart," and everybody laughs because she called her sweetheart, and then says that they need to put on more tinsel. Andrew looks at his mom like, "Isn't this wonderful? Katie's connecting with a woman like my dead wife." I mean, he doesn't say it, but that's how I read it. The thing where Katie, the little girl, calls Jessica a grown adult sweetheart is then used throughout the rest of the movie whenever Katie talks about something that seems beyond her years. The movie really liked that joke and liked that character aspect of young 5-year-old Katie. Jessica talks about how Americans hang candy canes from the tree. Katie asks if they have any. They don't, but they do have chocolate coins. Andrew does this whole thing, and it's actually quite endearing, where he talks about how, "Oh, Katie, you can't eat any of these chocolate coins until Christmas." Then he unwraps and eats one, and Katie's like, "Oh my God, what are you doing? We're not supposed to eat them." And he goes, "Oh, I know, you're not supposed to eat them. Don't be bad. Don't eat the coins." That's very cute. Jessica gets an idea. He says, "You know how people come to lodges and play video games or watch TV instead of spending time with their families? Well, maybe we can advertise this lodge as specifically for families to get away from it all." Which, this movie is it's connecting dots that are very close together. A traditional Christmas retreat. Andrew gets very quiet hearing this idea. He thanks her for the thought, and he says, we'll be okay. Suddenly the power goes out. Andrew goes to check it out. Jessica apologizes to Grandmother for overstepping her boundaries. Grandma says, "No, it's okay. He's just prideful. He doesn't want to admit that he's not a very good businessman, but he'll come around. You'll see." Outside, Andrew checks things outside of the house, but notices the light on the digger in the distance. Later, we see Andrew washing dishes in the dark kitchen. The power is still not back on. Grandma asks where he's been. Andrew says, "Well, I got the generator going." Maybe there was power in the kitchen. It doesn't matter. He noticed that the lights over on Ben's property were out as well, and says that maybe they're working on a power line or something. He doesn't really think this is just what he's telling his mom. In fact, Grandma doesn't buy it. She says, "I was with, you were very short with Jessica when she offered you that idea." Andrew shakes it off like no big deal. Grandma continues, though, and says, "You know what? Today could be the day. The day you meet someone who fills you with joy, someone to share the good times and ride out the bad ones with. But you have to let that person in. I know what you're scared of, but Jessica wants you and Katie." And I'm like, this chick has been there for less than 48 hours. And you're already saying that she wants them for the rest of their lives? I understand that's how these movies work, but she doesn't know that she's in one of these movies. Andrew notes, "Well, you know what? She was quick to work on business ideas to help us." Grandma says, "Look, give her a chance." At this moment, Andrew starts to well up. His eyes fill with tears and says, "She's going to be gone soon." Grandma says, "You know what? We'll see," which is what Amber said when she was asked if it was just for one night. Back in her room, Jessica journals. She says that this isn't like her at all, but this place is magical. The truth is she's falling for Andrew, and he probably hates her. She's going to call that airline first thing in the morning, and if she can't get a flight to Vienna, you know what? She'll just go home to Chicago. In Andrew's room, we see a photo of his presumably dead wife. Yeah, she's dead. On the side table, he looks at himself in the mirror and tells himself he's going to apologize to Jessica first thing in the morning. It's not that hard, he assures himself. He stares at himself for a while, and we cut right to the morning. We see Jessica's at the cafe. She tells Amber that she'd left early before anyone was out and about, trying to avoid everyone. Amber says, "You haven't checked out, though, right?" And I thought that was a weird question, because what we're dealing with here is a situation where she is the only lodger at this place, and there is no definitive checkout time for her. She could literally need to check out whenever. Also, what does that mean? Did you check out? Yes, I did. And then Amber's going to say, oh, no, that's terrible. You can't go back now? No, you can still go. You can check right back in. There's one lodger, you. Anyway, Jessica says, I can't check out. There's still no place to go. She mentions that she could have left last night with the opportunity of the one flight. And Amber perks up. What? And Jessica says, well, I didn't want to disappoint Katie. She wanted to do this stuff with me for Christmas, decorating a tree or blah, 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 coins, I don't know, whatever. Jessica notes, I probably sound crazy. Amber says, no, you sound like a caring person. And then this is where Amber breaks down the hardship Andrew has endured with the passing of his wife and how he can barely bring himself to come into town regardless of how it hurts his business. Then Adam, the uncle, who's also a baker, walks in. And this is when in my notes I noticed that there's too many people with A's in their names. Anyway, Adam sings and claims it's a Welsh folk song, not a carol, as if that would somehow make it less neat or important or cool. I don't know. Then he keeps singing and Amber starts talking under his singing. So I think he's just trying to impress Jessica because she's a singer that he really likes. What's weird about this, though, is that, okay, that behavior is kind of weird. But then Amber just starts talking while he's singing. And she asks Jessica, look, have you called the airline this morning? Jessica shakes her head and Amber says, good, I'm glad. We then leave that scene entirely. We jump to Andrew knocking on Jessica's door. She's not there. When she doesn't answer, he peeks through the window. Again, she's not there. But before he can do anything more, a man in a neon yellow jacket walks up, and it's not a jacket, it's like a work suit. Like he's working. He's a power line worker, guys. He works for the power company. I don't know why I put it so vaguely in my notes. He says they've detected a fault in the area. Has he been out of power? Andrew says, I sure have. And the guy says, I'm sorry, it's a weird one. The system says there was a break in the line, but there hasn't been any thunderstorms to cause a break in the line. And on top of that, the lines are buried underneath the ground. So that would be even weirder. And I'm thinking, wait, that the lines are buried beneath the ground. And you're like, well, there hasn't been an outage because there hasn't been a thunderstorm, but there says there's an outage. So why does it matter whether there's been a thunderstorm or not? Andrew says, I think I have an idea, and he gestures towards Ben's land. We cut to Ben on his land near the big digger. He sees the two men walking up and starts panicking. He jerks himself one direction, he jerks himself in another direction, then he falls right on the ground. And this is when it's the second time in within 10 minutes or so that the movie treats Ben like a complete cartoonish buffoon. He has his cohorts. He's just acting like he's a cartoon character almost. Whereas the rest of the time, he's treated like a sincere character with proper motivations and big feelings. Anyway, so he falls down. The two men walk up. And the worker starts taking appraisal of the ground around where Ben has fallen and now has gotten up. And he's acting weird. And the guy sees a dug hole and he sees a cut power line. And he's just immediately pissed off with Ben. He knows what's happened because you can see the digger too. And Ben starts making excuses. And he's like, oh, no, it's I've been trying to figure out what happened to myself. I don't know what it is. As I mentioned, the guy's really upset. The worker does not believe Ben and angrily fills out a form. Music plays and indicates this is supposed to be very funny. It's only okay. Ben looks to Andrew and apologizes. He was never any good on the digger. Andrew gives him a hug and says things happen. Back to Jessica. She's still in town. Her agent calls and says Vienna has been lost. They even want to hit them with a no-show fee, but he's directed them to talk to the airline about that. And what I thought was going to happen is they're going to call the airline, and the airline's going to be like, oh, no, we offered a flight, but she said no. Nope, never came up again. Maybe it's like a director's cut of this that does come up, and that's how the agent finds out she doesn't actually want to leave. Regardless, the agent, his name is Marvin. He says, I have better news for you. It's the big one. The Chicago Symphony Chorus, Carnegie Hall, 5 nights with 3 solos, Jessica. It starts on Christmas Eve. You'll need to be back in time by the 22nd to make sure you rest your voice. Jessica's taken aback. That's so soon. I didn't realize. He goes, look, we need to make up for the Vienna hit, and Christmas doesn't pay for itself. He starts moaning on and on. We see Adam the baker walk up to Jessica, who's just in the middle of the street. He walks up to offer her some cinnamon rolls. He explains that Amber has been on him to try some American recipes. Jessica makes a big face that, I don't know, indicates that they look good to her. but it feels deeper, like the cinnamon rolls represent something more. I don't know. Back at the house, Jessica and Grandma talk. Jessica explains that she found out about the dead wife. She wishes there was something she could do. I don't know if she means bringing the dead wife back to life. Probably not. Grandma thinks and pours Jessica some tea. She lays this all out. We have nothing. They can keep the park open until the end of January, then they'll have to close. There's an offer from a mining company, but they'll destroy the park, and everyone in town knows about this entire ordeal. Sorry, there was a motorcycle or a little moped or something nearby. So basically, Grandma's like, we got nothing going on here, and everyone knows about it, and they know that there's been an offer from a mining company because there's some, worthwhile minerals underneath Ben's land, but Ben can't sell his land unless Andrew also sells the access land to it. That's why Ben wants him to sell. Now, if they sell, they'll be able to buy a house. They'll probably live a comfortable life somewhere else. But then the town will be overrun by mining equipment and miners, and it will just probably cause everything else to shut down. The movie does not explain why this is a de facto thing that's going to happen. But that's what it says, that, if the mine opens, it's going to become a mining town and businesses will be lost. Andrew does explain it in a little more detail later on, like somehow chains are going to come into town because of the mining, and when the chains come, the other businesses are going to shut down, then there's going to be more of this and more of that. You get the gist. If they sell, it's bad news. But if they don't sell, Grandma's not sure how that's going to play out. Grandma explains the real bitch of it all, which is my words, not hers, is that they won't even get nearly as much as Ben will because his is the land that has the nutrients, but the minerals underneath of it. Just then, Andrew walks in. He's surprised to see Jessica there. There's an awkward moment, and Grandma excuses herself out of the room. Andrew immediately gets into it. He offers her a simple, I'm sorry for what happened the night before. It's been difficult for them, he says, and he hasn't made it any easier by being proud. You were only trying to help, and I should have seen it. Jessica grasps his hand. She says, look, I'd love to help. I don't know what that might even be, but I want to try. He says, we'd be really grateful if you did. Jessica then asks, when is Katie finishing school for the day? Because we need to go shopping. Then we get a shopping montage. The montage is mostly looking at storefront windows in the small town type of storefront, seeing people put Christmas decorations in their windows to indicate they were not there prior, and we see Andrew and Jessica go in and out of one store. Not all of the stores, at least not in this montage, just the one. They buy a box of things. We then cut back to the house where the montage is continuing right on through, and we see everyone decorating a Christmas tree, which they'd already started the other night, but now they have even more stuff to decorate the tree with. That's not all, though. They also have Amber there, and Amber has brought a tiny dog. This dog, as far as I can remember, never appears again. There's the tray of cinnamon rolls from earlier in the movie. They also wrap presents, but I thought that was odd because who are these presents for that they're wrapping? Because pretty much everybody in this family is here. So what present are they wrapping? Like, even with the extended family of Amber being involved, who is this for? Like, who's the present that Jessica's wrapping? Who's it for? Is it for Andrew? Well, he just saw what was wrapped. So I don't know. I thought that was weird. Anyway, it ends with the family photo in front of the fireplace next to the tree that Amber is taking, so everybody else is in it, including Jessica, who's only been there for, at this point, less than 72 hours. Amber readies the camera, but then says that it needs one more thing, something on top of the tree. Every single adult in this room seems puzzled, but Katie the child thinks of something. She returns with an angel and says it's the one that her daddy made. She flips a switch on it and the angel lights up. It's not even plugged in, which means it's running off of battery power. And yet she's like, click, click, click. It's on, and he made it? Does he do electrical wiring too? And not just like to plug it into the wall, but for battery power. Amber thinks this angel is amazing. Katie repeats for a second time that her dad made it, as if to shove it in my face, like me, the reviewer, talking about this movie, saying that doesn't make any sense. And Katie's like, yeah, well, guess what? He made it, Joe. They put the angel on the tree, and everyone oohs. Amber says, you need some more of those. I want one for the cafe and one for my flat. Jessica says, you could easily sell those. He's stunned. Me too. It's not that the angel's bad. It's just not special. It's just a little angel. It sits on top of a goddamn Christmas tree. We then get a montage of photos that were supposedly taken, which are actually just stills from the movie. Photos being taken of the family in front of the tree, and other wacky poses, and in none of those, I repeat, none of those is the angel on the tree. And then there's one last photo that is properly taken. That by that I mean it's like staged, everyone's standing there, everyone's smiling, and that one does have the angel on the tree. Why couldn't they? It doesn't matter. We cut to Jessica and Andrew looking at that last photo on a tablet. He is blown away by how nice the lodge looks. She says, I'm going to send these photos to my agent. He can sell anything and will get you a website. He asks if she's a web designer as well. She says, nope, but I'm about to learn. And this is when I got excited that there might be the return of the website builder sponsor within the movie. Years ago, there was one movie where it was, I believe, Wix.com. Maybe another one was Squarespace. I'm not sure. There's been at least 2 or 3 movies that I've watched over the years where they had like that product placement right in the movie where somebody's like, well, Wix.com, on this, anybody can make a website. And then they make the website and it looks really nice and it does exactly what they want it to. And I was really tickled by that. But unfortunately, this is not a tee up for a montage of somebody creating an account at Wix.com. What makes me laugh about that also is it's stuck in my memory. I will always remember Wix.com from that one movie, which means it worked. God damn it, it worked. Andrew says as a thank you, he asks if she'd like to join them at the Winter Wonder Park. It's something that they put together with loads of Christmas stuff that sort of makes up for the lack of snow in town for Christmas. I don't get it. Basically, it's just a winter wonderland, but there's no snow around. But that doesn't really change anything. It's all pretty and it's fun and there's activities and there's shit to do. And it's just like, they do this because there's no snow. What? She asks if they have hot chocolate. He says it does. She is in. We're going to go on Saturday the 20th. Jessica's eyes go wide. Not because she can't make it, but because that date will be so much closer to when she has to leave. He asks if you'll still be here. She says, oh, sure, I will be. Katie then jumps in to say, of course she's going to be. She's here until Christmas. We then cut to Jessica talking to her agent. He's shocked to hear her plans. Not to stay in town longer than necessary, but basically to help out the lodge, the park, or whatever they call this property. Jessica says, yeah, well, they're friends of mine. He says, I understand, but they're no friends of mine, and my time isn't free. And she pleads with him, Marvin, come on, make a phone call. He says he will, but she needs to get back in town. She smiles and hangs up without saying goodbye, which is very rude, especially for your agent and longtime friend. And then she says, after hanging up, no promises, Marvin, which is really shitty. We join Andrew in his workshop, sketching out an angel in charcoal. Next, we see Andrew cleaning up the grounds of the property. Ben walks up with some men. This is such a stupid scene. I'm not going to read my notes. I'm just going to tell you what happens. Basically, he has his 2 cohorts from the night that he was using the digger, and one of them has a fake mustache and beard on, and he tells Andrew that these men are from the Forestry Service, and they've noticed some sort of disease or fungus that's attacking the trees, and so all the trees are going to have to come down. And then Andrew knows that this is all a lie, so he says, well, I guess I have to cut down the trees, which would be terrible, or maybe I'll just sell the property to you, Ben. And Ben's like, well, I don't want to pressure you, but if that is what you're interested in. It's so dumb, and it doesn't fit the rest of this movie. These little comedy asides with Ben as the cartoon character just don't fit, especially because when he's serious, Ben has so much gravitas with what he is trying to do. There's going to be a scene in just a little while where he talks about his motivations, his family, what he wants for them, and why he wants to sell. But in this scene, it's just stupid. While this scene is going on, and a car pulls up, a man gets out in a suit. This is a real official, and he's from the mining company, and he wants to talk to Andrew. We cut to them in the kitchen where he lays out the idea. They've upped their offer for the property. He's going to get as much as Ben will get for his property because they feel like it's only fair given the situation and why it's really hard for them to say no. So we're going to give you as much as Ben's going to get in hopes that you'll sell and we can begin mining. And that seems all fine, right? But Andrew still says no for the reasons that we've already gone over. The guy says it's an unprecedented offer. Andrew still is not interested. He slides the envelope that's been passed to him across to the man at the table. Then the man gets a very stern look on his face. He goes from being helpful to being kind of, mean or just, no longer helpful, I guess, Joe. And he goes, look, if we open this mine, we might be able to do it without you. And if we open this mine, well, you're going to be stuck next to a mine. You're going to have, what do they call them? ash pots? No. Potash, that's what it is. Potash reserves everywhere. No one's going to want to come to your lodge when you're stuck next to this mining field. Whatever, you get it. Basically, he's threatening him. He urges Andrew to take the offer and leaves. It's now time for the Winter Wonderland gimmick. I forget what they called it. It doesn't matter. Katie is so excited, and we get a montage of her at the different displays and events. Everyone is so excited. They have a great time. We watch 4 separate people come down a slide because the camera's like at the mouth of the slide. It's curvy slide, woo, 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 you know, the kind. And so we see Katie come down. We see Andrew come down. We see Jessica. We see Grandma. All of them come out the slide's mouth as if this is the best thing in the entire Winter Wonderland. And then it's time for Santa, but we don't get to hear Katie talking to Santa. It's just part of the montage where she walks over to Santa and then presumably tells him what she wants for Christmas, but none of that matters in this movie. Everyone is at the hot cocoa stand as the montage ends. Marvin calls Jessica and gives her good news. We don't know exactly what the good news is. Jessica tells him to text her the info, and he says he will. She then tells him, look, I'm not going to be back for the 22nd, or the 20th is what it was, but then agrees to come back by the 23rd. And he apparently says okay to this. Keep in mind, he's saying okay to the 23rd. She rejoins the group. They ask if everything is okay because she had taken that phone call away from the table. She assures them that it is. It was just her agent. Katie then gets worried and asks if she's actually going to go back. Jessica says no. And Katie says, good, because you're my Christmas present, and holds Jessica's hand. I think that's a little bit forward, Katie, but you're only 5 years old. I think it's okay. Cut to Andrew and Jessica standing on their own. They're on like this wooden fencing, and they're looking at a waterfall and lights in the distance, and they're having a nice romantic moment. They're standing side by side. Jessica slowly creeps her hand out. I don't know why I use the word creeps her hand out and grasps old Andrew's hand. And he looks down, he smiles, he looks at her, and they smile. They're having a nice moment. Over at the cafe, Amber works, because this is a separate thing happened at the same time. Amber's working at the cafe. After a quick montage of people chatting and eating and drinking, the music stops, and Amber is asked by a customer where she got that beautiful angel on the top of your tree. Amber explains that we have a local artist who makes them. The 2 women are like, oh, local artists. You got to support local artists. Can we have 2 of them? We'd like 2 of them. And then the woman at the other table is like, well, I would like 6 of them. And eventually, before you know it, everybody in the place wants an angel. And it's also, packed, so that's a ton of angels. And then Amber, the salesperson, says, he also does paintings. And they're just like, oh, I'd love to see his collection. I want the paintings too. Oh my gosh, yes. We then rejoin the family back at the house after the Winter Wonderland. They each talk about their favorite part of the Winter Wonderland. Andrew's was the lights they were looking at, when they held hands. He doesn't say that part though, but we know, you and me know. Grandma picks up what's going down and takes Katie off to put her to bed, probably. Before they leave, Katie asks if Jessica will make cookies with her the next day. They'll decorate them in the decorating lodge. This seems significant for some reason that's not explained within the movie because Jessica doesn't answer. Will she help her decorate cookies in the decorating lodge? She turns to Andrew, if that's okay with you. And Andrew says it is, so they will. Now they're alone. Andrew says, I'm so glad you came. He asks if she'd like to check out downtown. And the thing is, we know he's avoided it, that he hasn't gone downtown. So the fact that he'd like to show her around downtown, well, that tells us that it's special to him, that he wants to spend time with her, and he's willing to put himself out there. He talks about taking a boat ride and dressing warm because it's cold on the water. And anyway, she's in. He leans in to kiss her when Ben shouts out, what is this I hear about you turning down that great offer? Ben shouts. Andrew starts basically laying it out for Ben. He says, look, what about your kids? What about your grandkids, Ben? They all live in this town, but there won't be a town if they build a mine. It can't accommodate what a new mine brings. So the shops are going to be forced out. There's going to be new shops here to help, service that type of clientele, or at least, that number of people. I'm not sure which it is. It's going to happen. It happens every time. You can either be a part of that, or you can preserve what life we have here. Ben is almost speechless. He goes, my grandkids, they're going to have a field day with that money. Andrew says, are you sure? And he asks Ben to think back to the happiest time of his life. Ben thinks about his time as a kid, running around, climbing trees, picking apples in this very town. Andrew says, well, how much did those days cost? Ben is stuck. Well, I mean, okay, it's really easy to say how much did those days cost because, the kids don't need the money. But the parents need the money to pay for mortgages, to pay for food, to pay for things that make those simple days possible. Oh, I love running around and picking apples. Did you wear shoes? Were you wearing clothes? But Andrew doesn't acknowledge any of that. He wants to be smarmy. He's not smarmy. He's a very likable character. So anyway, like I said, Ben is stuck, but then he doubles down with the plan. Times changed. I want a good life for my kids in those modern times. Andrew understands, and he asks Ben to simply think about this. Ben agrees, and he walks away. We then pan to Jessica, who has watched all of this and is probably more in love with him than ever. We cut to her checking her phone inside one of the lodges, the main lodge where everything has been happening. She sees that whatever Marvin has sent her has arrived, and she thanks him. Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Marvin. She calls someone and is surprised to hear that someone already did something. This is very confusing, and it's never really explained until the end, but even then, I don't know what... Again, I think the movie's just trying to build a mystery here. What is she talking about? What is she doing? We cut to her journaling. She's excited about going to town the next day since Andrew was so reclusive. Then her phone rings. It's the airline. They have a flight for the next day. Jessica says, no, that's too soon. Look. Just book me for a flight on the 24th. The woman says, well, on the 24th, that's going to be super expensive. And Jessica says, that's fine. I can handle it. She then hangs up and asks herself, what is she doing? So I just want to set the stage here a little bit. Jessica has an agent who makes money off of the things that Jessica does, that he gets for her to do. And they've been together for a long time, and Marvin is his name, and he does not seem like a bad guy. And she is taking great advantage of this. She's lying to him. She's misleading him. He sets her up with a multi-event deal where she's going to be in 5 shows over across maybe a week it is. I don't remember. She has solos in the shows. It's a lot of good stuff for her. He set this up for her. And she's lying to him. I'm going to be in town. No, I'm not going to be in town. You know what? I'll get in town on the 23rd. No, actually, no, I'm going to be coming into town on the 24th. What if you're wondering, is, I believe, the date of the first show. Now, thankfully, time zones work in her favor, going from Northern England to New York. But that's still cutting it incredibly close. What a piece of shit. Sorry. It's not that she's a piece of shit. It's frustrating. It's now the next day. We find Andrew and Jessica in their little rowboat. She says she's never been in a rowboat before. It's delightful. They take in the sights. He can't imagine living anywhere else. He talks about how he's actually been to America. He lists off all the big cities he's been to. He concludes that wherever you go in the world, it's about the people you're with. As an artist, you can meet the most extraordinary people, but also some bad ones. Here in town, I know all these people. He said a lot more than that, but that was the gist of it. Basically, in this town, I know these are good people. And if I go somewhere else, I might meet some good ones, and I might meet some bad ones. He asks Jessica if she's enjoying her time in England. She says it's an amazing place with amazing people. And he jokes about, are you talking about Adam, the baker? Well, he doesn't say the baker. He knows who Adam is. She laughs and says she's not. She then says, you're being such a chivalrous gentleman. Just kiss me already. And so she leans in, and he leans in, and they do some smooching. We cut to Jessica and Katie making cookies. Jessica doesn't know how to measure the ingredients. Because Katie says, okay, we need like a teaspoon of vanilla. Katie's 5 years old. We need a teaspoon of vanilla. And Jessica picks up the bottle of vanilla and looks at it and goes, oh, how do we do this? And then Katie looks at the table where there's a measuring spoon, and Jessica puts one and one together. Jessica is a grown woman who has fed herself for some years. And I get that some people may not know how to cook, quote unquote. They may not know how to make things. But I'm going to guess everybody understands the concepts of tools used when cooking occurs. I need a cup of flour. Well, how the hell do you figure that out? That's what she would say in this situation, apparently. Anyway, after this whole confusion about how to use tools when cooking, Katie replies that you can be my mom now. And Jessica is kind of surprised by this, and, hems and haws, and Katie adjusts it. The 5-year-old adjusts her request and says, well, maybe you can just be my mom until Christmas. She says, look, I know you're going to stay. You know that, right? As if she's some kind of sage wisdom or oracle who's saying, like, I know what your future foretells. Jessica gets very serious, and she goes, I want to let you know that I love it here, and I love being here with all of you guys. And yes, including your dad. But my life is in Chicago. Because I think Katie asked, even my dad? Anyway, and I have a house, and I have work there. And Katie says, but you can sing here. We even have a Christmas choir. And Katie says she wants to hear Jessica sing. Jessica says, look, I can do that, but I want you to be prepared for when I leave. Katie turns on a dime and goes, I understand. Let's get back to the baking. She is 5 years old. Jessica gets a call from the person she was talking to the night before. It's one of the mysterious business people and not an airline or anything. We cut to Andrew and Grandma and Amber in Andrew's workshop. Amber says, I have an order for 16 angels. And maybe you could put up some paintings in the cafe because people were interested in that too. And hearing about this abundance of angels that people want from him and the interest in his artwork, Andrew's overjoyed. And Grandma is so happy. It's just wonderful news. And then Jessica runs in with Katie. She says she's got a call from a distribution buyer in the U.S. They supply all the major chains. They want to work with you. They love the Christmas angel. They want to use the design and work with you to make more pieces. Andrew is confused. Jessica continues that, look, they'll let you do what you've always wanted, but for the whole world. Amber is excited for him, but he isn't. He already says, I have orders already from Amber's customers. And Jessica says, no, don't worry about that. You can still do that and all of the things you love. They just want you as you are, working with them. Andrew says, I can't believe this. Grandma says, wait, does that mean we can keep the park open? Yes, it does. Everyone cheers. Yay. Jessica, who doesn't know when to quit, adds that they also love the painting that she saw that's in her lodge, and they want to print it and see the rest of the collection of paintings, and they cheer again. Andrew, she says, your worries are over. And this is a weird part of the movie that gets done with in such a haphazard fashion. So money is the issue for Andrew. I know what that's like, Andrew, trust me. So money is an issue for him. And he wants to keep his park, as they keep calling it, his park open. But he can't afford it because it's not really making enough money. And they can't really upgrade things because it's not making enough money. I don't know. It doesn't really make sense. Because even if he has money, it's still not making money. It's just going to be in the same situation. Regardless, with what's her name, Jessica's help, he decides to create and sell these angels. Amber helps take orders. There's 16 orders for angels and people interested in his paintings, which seems like a regular level of conclusion for this type of story. It also seems like it's coming a little early, considering there's still more movie to happen. But that seems like the right level of conclusion for this story. Oh, the town is interested in the things he makes, and they will support him, so then he has the money to kind of keep this place open for the time being. Okay, cool. But then the movie immediately trumps itself by having Jessica come in and say, fuck all that. I have Walmart on the line. Walmart wants your angels. Walmart wants to print your paintings. Walmart. I'm just making up one of the possible chains. And so we don't need anything about Amber and the 16 angels. That's immediately pointless because that's not where the money is really going to be coming from. It's coming from the chains. It's coming from the big distribution arm that wants to take his work and replicate it. And it feels weird that they set up this one possible conclusion, Amber and the people of the town being interested in his works, still included it in the story, and then immediately undercut it with a bigger conclusion where he's going to have a lot more money. Anyway, Jessica's phone rings. It's the airline. She takes it outside. Grandma notices she goes outside. They confirm that the ticket that Jessica has asked for is a one-way flight to New York on Christmas Eve. Jessica pauses and then says yes. She's also sad. We cut to her walking around town by herself as sad piano music plays. Now, the piano music reminded me of something, and if you're old like me, I can tell you that the piano music is very similar to the sad theme music from the 70s Incredible Hulk TV show. And if you'd like to hear about it, here it is. So yes, this is the music that plays after a fashion as Jessica walks around town. She takes in all the town that she loves, but she knows she's making herself leave because her life is truly elsewhere. But she wonders, maybe if my life isn't elsewhere, maybe my life is truly here. I don't know, but I know that the sad piano music is playing in the background. Up walks a man who's dressed like an old town crier with a white wig, or maybe he just has white hair. He does the old hear ye bit, and he makes a big declaration. And it was just, this doesn't really make sense. He proclaims that the citizens of Narrowsboro are pleased to welcome Jessica Bailey of Chicago, Illinois, in America. He continues and says that because a crowd now is growing around this guy talking to this woman or about this woman in the middle of the sidewalk. He says to everyone that she has to get back to America, but that she should be thanked for her generous and magnanimous behavior on behalf of the Hunter family, Andrew, Katie, Grandma, etc. He also declares that she has a lifetime of drinks and desserts at the cafe. We can see that Adam and Amber are among the crowd. Apparently they paid this guy to do this. They greet Jessica afterward and head off to the cafe. At the cafe, Amber and Jessica catch up. Jessica tells Amber that she has to leave, explaining that she'll be going from the airport directly to the concert hall. I have no idea what I'm thinking. Amber says, I know what you're thinking. Ooh. She doesn't say the ooh part, but the ooh. Jessica says, but I'm a strong, independent woman. I've built a career. And Amber says, look, everyone wants someone special. Jessica says, I've never needed anyone. Amber says, well, now you do. Aren't you lucky? Jessica says, I'm behaving like a lovesick teenager. If I miss that concert, I can kiss my career goodbye. Nothing is worse in my line of work than being unreliable. I have to go. And I thought that this was a very weird discussion in this movie, because the point of it basically is that Jessica needs him now instead of wanting him, which is a point of difference in a lot of people's lives, especially I would think for a woman who declares that she's a strong, independent woman who has built a career and she's never needed anyone. And Amber's like, well, you need him now. And I would think that that would jive for the character of Jessica. Be like, no, I don't need him. I just like him and I want to spend time with him. I don't need him. Anyway, apparently she does. Adam comes out to deliver a platter of spiced minced meat Christmas crumble. He's headed off to the choir singing deal and tells that I told the choir to leave a space for you in our Christmas carol service. This causes Jessica to start crying, which alarms Adam. Amber explains what's going on about her having to leave and being sad about it. Adam says he understands. He gave up the finest patisserie in France to set up this shop here in Narrowsboro, and I don't regret it for a second. People like Andrew and his family only come around once in a century. Amber jumps in that she came to town for a summer writing holiday, and I never left. Amber also mentions how the wonderful people in town make up for the lack of snow, which is weird. What are you talking about? Jessica, you've got to stay in Narrowsboro. I know there's no snow here, but there's a lot of cool folks. We cut to Andrew in his workshop. He spots Ben outside and gets an idea. He rushes out and tells Ben that while he can't meet the price offered by the mining company, he'd be happy to give Ben more than market value for the land. Probably, as he admits, about half of the mining company's offer. Ben asks why, and Andrew says, look, I can't see the town get ruined. Ben thinks and he goes, you can't afford it. And Andrew admits, no, I can't yet, but give me time. Give me a couple of months. Ben thinks even more. We then jump to Jessica and Grandma wrapping gifts. I guess there's more gifts to wrap. Jessica says that, I have to tell you something. And Grandma says, I know, you have to leave, and it's going to be okay. We then then we have Andrew walk right in as this is being discussed, and he officially asks Jessica to stay for Christmas. Jessica stands and breaks the news to him that she has to go. He quickly exits, saying it's okay. Jessica starts to cry. Back in his workshop, Andrew folds up the sketch of the angel that he made and tosses it aside. Then we go back to Jessica, who's journaling. She says she has, in her journal, she says she has to remember who she was and how she felt before she came to Narrowsboro. Her phone rings. It's her agent. He says, look, I have somehow found out about your flight on the 24th. And I'm telling you, you can't make the concert. You'll be in no shape to sing, even if you made it on time, which you probably won't. And she goes, how do you know about all of this? And he goes, it's my business to know about your business. I look out for things so that you can do the things that you love. I'm right, aren't I? And she says he is. And he goes, look, if you want me to cancel the concert, just tell me now. And Jessica thinks and goes, no, I'll be there. He just said you won't be there in time. And then he asks you, look, be honest with me. Are you coming or not? And she says, I am coming. I am coming. Spoiler, she doesn't go. She is fucked over her agent yet again. It's the next day and Katie is jumping rope outside. Jessica walks up to break the bad news that she's going to be leaving. And Katie says, don't worry. Grandma already told me. It'll be okay. You'll be back. Jessica starts to cry and says, I'm not sure about that. She suggests that she and Katie become pen friends and write to each other. Pen friends? Is that an English version of pen pals? Or is this movie just being weird for weird's sake? Please, let me know. Pen friends? Katie says that sounds great and she loves Jessica. Jessica says she loves her too. They hug. Up walks Andrew. He wants to talk to Jessica. First he apologizes. I don't know about what at this point. It's very confusing. Jessica says it's okay. It had to happen at some point. I guess when he walked away because he was sad because she said she was leaving. Anyway, she says it had to happen at some point. He says he understands. Life goes on, doesn't it? They hold hands. She says she'll never forget him. Katie's not there for this, by the way. That would be kind of weird. Jessica says she'll never forget him. He says that she changed his life in so many ways. She says he deserves it, and so does Grandma, and so does Katie. He holds back tears as he invites her out to the carol service. Just one more night. She agrees. They hug. He thanks her. She does not return the thank you because she is, in fact, a jerk. And if you're like, Joe, is she a jerk? Ask Marvin. We jump to Andrew picking Jessica up for the carol service. He walks up to her lodge door. She knocks. She doesn't answer. She is, in fact, gone. She's left a note. The note says, Dearest Andrew, I know that you're going to be disappointed by what I've done, but please believe me, seeing you and Katie tonight at the carol service would have been too much for me to bear. I hope you can see that it's because I have such strong feelings for you that I have to leave like this. I wish we could have met under different circumstances. Please forgive me. All my love, Jessica. Andrew is broken down in tears. We then jump to the carol choir doing their deal. The music is very happy. Not the carol music, but the background music of the movie. Very happy music. Grandma sends Katie off to sing with the choir and joins Andrew to watch. Andrew is impressed with how well Katie is taking the bad news about Jessica. Grandma says, well, you know what? She has lots of distractions with the choir and Christmas and all that stuff. And honestly, she believes Jessica's coming back. Andrew says it might be for the best that she believes Jessica's coming back. It'll make it easier until she forgets about her. We then cut to Jessica at the train station from the beginning of the movie. The train station worker asks if she found some accommodations, because it's like he's still there. Even though days have passed, he's still there. And he goes, oh, were you able to find the accommodations you needed while you were waiting for a flight? She says she did. He says, okay, excellent. Well, the train's going to be leaving in about 12 minutes. Oh, and I hope you have a warm coat because it's going to snow. Guys, I write in my notes, I'm about to lose my shit. But I save this shit losing until the end. Jessica says, wait, I thought it didn't snow around here until January. And they've never mentioned the part where it just snows later. They act like there's never any snow. The station worker says that's true, but there's an Arctic front moving in. In fact, it starts snowing right then. He tells Jessica that everything is going to be okay. It makes him think of family, the snow does. He's sure she'll have a smashing Christmas back home with her family. He implores her to look after them. There's nothing more important than family in this world. We hear a train whistle and cut from there to the choir singing. Adam the baker is the conductor because, of course, these people reuse these characters. Amber, his niece, proprietor of the cafe, notices that it's snowing. Everyone is blown away by the snow. Grandma declares it magical. She says Katie will be so pleased. We then cut to Katie and her dad out and about somewhere. Katie's just standing there, and her dad's watching her. I guess it's like, I don't know, choir related. Regardless, he's watching her, but then he notices Katie sees something, and he turns around, and wouldn't you goddamn know it, it's Jessica. She's back. She walks up and immediately jumps into Andrew's arms. He tells her to stay. She says, tell me to stay. And he says, stay. We need you here. I need you here. And she says, I need you too. And they kiss. And Katie runs over and hugs them both. I knew you were coming back. Katie declares Jessica their Christmas angel. Jessica gives Katie a peck on her forehead, and then the two rejoin the choir. Ben walks up to Andrew, holding a grandbaby in his arms. He sidles up to Andrew and asks if the offer is still available. It is. And he says, well, you can hold on to it because I'm not selling. Andrew is, of course, surprised. Ben says, the baby and the baby's cousins, they deserve everything we had. You can't put a price on that. Andrew thanks him, and they shake hands. Andrew is in tears again. Adam, remember the conductor of the choir, blah, blah, blah. I say blah, blah, blah way too much. Adam introduces Jessica for the next song. Everyone, she's a big-time soprano. She does concerts, whatever. Everyone sings to Jessica. You can hear a voice that sounds like it's nicer than the rest. Presumably that's Jessica's. But you'd think there would be like an actual solo or something to show that this woman is the soprano, the big-time singer that everyone talks about her being. No, she's just in the choir, in the group. Credits roll, and now I can officially lose my shit. That station worker, I waited to see if he was magical, because there's the whole bit about loving your family and, go to this station but don't go too far. Don't miss your stop. But he's not magical. He's just a regular guy who talks like a magical character. And so, as I mentioned near the beginning, when Amber explains that they're about 20-some miles away from the airport, and that according to Google, one example of a train going 35 miles per hour, it would take about 3 hours to get from the Narrowsboro area to the airport area. It is nighttime. She is at the station where this guy works. And then she decides to go back to Narrowsboro. It should take about 3 hours because she is at the station near the airport, right? How else did she get there other than it being close to the airport from the beginning of the movie? Did she ride on a train for 3 hours? Or did she take some other method of transportation? A cab. It's dark out. Did she take a cab at night? Well, she did take a cab. We saw her arrive in a cab. But 20 miles in a cab? I just feel like this movie just futs around with time, and it doesn't need to be that complicated, and yet they made it complicated. Maybe I'm being a nitpicky jerk. Maybe I'm a jerk just like Jessica's a jerk. She even fell asleep on the train. Let's not worry about it. 20 miles? Really? Come on. All right, so the movie's over. This podcast is over. Let's talk about some stuff. I don't have my tropes in front of me, but I can tell you a few things. This movie is not magical. They don't treat Santa as if he's real. There is no ice skating. There is no dead parents. There is a dead wife, but it doesn't really play in. I mean, I would still count this as like a dead spouse type of story, but it doesn't really play into the story much, not as much as you'd think. And I guess that's about it. So let's conclude this episode. Hopefully there will be more. I can't make any promises other than there'll probably be one more at least, and hopefully more after that. So that's it. If you have any feedback, any questions, any recommendations, please reach out to me at JOEMOC on most social media platforms. Instagram, X, formerly Twitter. I'm going to call it Twitter because it's stupid to call it something else. Whatever else, man. Just JOEMOC. I'm Joe. I have in the past watched 60 Christmas movies in 60 days. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you again soon.